Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a really wild day in internet history. The day YouTube literally just vanished from the global internet. And you know what the craziest part is? It wasn't some evil mastermind or a massive cyber attack. It was all because of a tiny mapping mistake. It's a legendary story that perfectly shows us just how incredibly fragile our digital worlds can actually be.
So you've got to wonder, how on earth did a domestic local bloc in Pakistan end up taking down YouTube for the entire planet? To figure out this mystery, we're not looking for master hackers. We aren't looking for state actors or massive power grid failures. No, we're looking at a simple, innocent misunderstanding deeply baked into the internet's underlying architecture. We're going to see how a completely local order accidentally echoed across the entire globe.
Okay, picture this. It's February 2008. Out of nowhere, one of the biggest video sites on Earth just goes dark. Engineers are scrambling, right? They're checking everything. Power outage? Nope. Massive DDoS attack? Negative. YouTube's own internal networks were actually running perfectly fine. But here's the wild part. All the global traffic trying to get to YouTube was mysteriously making a beeline straight for Pakistan. In just a matter of minutes, the whole world's internet navigation system was basically tricked into thinking the absolute best way to reach YouTube was a one-way ticket to South Asia. All right, let's get right into Section 1, Global YouTube Outage. To really wrap our heads around how this happened, we need to talk about something called BGP, or Border Gateway Protocol. Honestly, you can just think of BGP as the GPS of the internet. When you type in a website, your request needs directions to find the right server, right? Well, BGP is this massive underlying navigation map that's constantly, and I mean constantly, sharing directions between hundreds of thousands of routers all over the world. It's literally what tells your data packets which turns to take on the information superhighway. Which brings us to Section 2, Accidental BGP Hijack. So the whole catalyst for this classic and completely accidental BGP hijack was actually entirely domestic. The Pakistani government issued a mandate to block YouTube within its own borders due to some political and religious controversies on the platform at the time. They handed this directive down to the local telecom provider, PTCL. The assignment was super straightforward. Just make sure no domestic user inside Pakistan can load YouTube. Now, to enforce that block, the engineers at PTCL couldn't just flip a big off switch. Instead, they had to create a brand new, highly targeted BGP route inside their own network. If you look at the comparison we've got here, notice the difference. On the left, we have YouTube's normal route announcement, which ends in a /22. But on the right, you see PTCL's new intercepted route, ending in a /24. Now, to a human, these look like random numbers. But to a network router, these are highly specific mathematical instructions. And that brings us to a fundamental, unbreakable rule of the internet, the longest prefix match. Basically, this is a core BGP rule that says routers will always prioritize the most precise, mathematically specific network path. In networking speak, a /24 route is just considered way more specific than a /22 route. It's kind of like the difference between telling the post office, hey, deliver this to New York, versus deliver this to 123 Main Street, New York. The routers are always going to choose that absolute best, most specific path, every single time. So here was the original localized game plan. Step 1, a domestic user in Pakistan tries to go to YouTube. Step 2, because of that super specific /24 route we just talked about, the PTCL router intercepts the request. Step 3, the traffic gets sent straight into a digital black hole and gets completely dropped. Boom, the block is achieved domestically and the rest of the world goes on about their day totally unaffected. Theoretically anyway. But, well, things didn't go as planned. Let's look at Section 3. Trust flaws in the network. Because theoretical plans almost never survive contact with reality, right? Someone at PTCL made a tiny configuration error. That local black hole route, yeah, it wasn't kept local. It was accidentally announced externally to their upstream internet service providers. Now, normally, these massive upstream ISPs should have caught this. They should have filtered out this weird, hyper-specific anomaly. But they didn't. They failed to filter it, and suddenly this purely local block instruction leaked all the way out onto the massive global internet. You're probably wondering, why on earth did the rest of the world just accept this new route? Well, it's because of BGP's most critical, fundamental flaw: blind trust. See, when BGP was designed way back in the 80s and 90s, the internet was just a small, tight-knit community of network operators who basically all knew each other. It was built entirely on the honor system. It never actually verifies if you genuinely own the destination you're claiming. The whole philosophy is literally just, oh, you say you know the best way? Okay, cool, I believe you. So the crazy result here is that all of a sudden, traffic from users literally everywhere, Tokyo, London, New York, hit their local ISPs, and those ISPs checked the global map. And the map said, hey, PTCL over in Pakistan has a super specific fast track route to YouTube. Because of that longest prefix match rule, the entire international internet backbone completely bypassed Google's real servers and slammed headfirst directly into Pakistan's local network. And of course, the result over at PTCL was just absolute, total chaos. Since PTCL obviously didn't have YouTube's actual massive server farms sitting in their data centers, this giant global tidal wave of traffic hit a brick wall. Users all over the world just experienced catastrophic connection drops. Browsers were throwing widespread TCP timeouts, connection resets were triggered everywhere, and millions upon millions of packets were just dropped straight into the void. To anyone staring at their screen, it looked exactly like YouTube was completely dead. All right, let's see how they fixed it in Section 4. Google's routing counterattack. Now, obviously, Google wasn't just going to sit back and watch their global traffic vanish into thin air. They realized they had to fight fire with fire, using the exact same networking rules to win it back. Here's how this incredible technical counterattack played out. First, Pakistan accidentally announces that /24 route. Second, the global outage immediately kicks off as the world's traffic diverts. Third, Google's engineers spring into action, they analyze the BGP tables, and they announce even tighter /25 routes. And finally, step 4, the global routing system slowly converges back to the correct pass. Let's zoom in on step 3 for a second. To beat Pakistan's highly specific /24 route, Google engineers brilliantly announced 2 even more specific /25 routes. Remember that golden rule we talked about? The most mathematically specific path wins. So by slicing their own network announcement into even smaller, more precise chunks, Google essentially forced the entire global BGP system to prioritize their real servers over the black hole in Pakistan. It was like a massive vacuum, safely sucking all the internet's traffic back to where it actually belonged. Okay, Section 5. How does modern network defend? Obviously, relying on engineers to spot a problem and launch a real-time counterattack isn't exactly a sustainable, long-term security strategy. So, how do we make sure a simple typo doesn't break the web today? Well, the modern solution the industry is aggressively adopting is called RPKI, or Resource Public Key Infrastructure. You can really just think of this as adding a strict bouncer to the internet's mapping system. It's a security framework that finally forces the internet to ask for your cryptographic digital ID before it blindly trusts your directions. If a network tries to announce a route it doesn't cryptographically own, the routers are just like, nope, and they reject it immediately. And let me tell you, this matters so deeply right now. What happened in 2008 was just a localized accident that happened to leak. But today, security researchers are seriously worried because intentional BGP manipulation by nation-states has evolved into a massive global security risk. Without RPKI in place, bad actors could intentionally announce specific routes to intercept sensitive bank traffic, redirect you to spoofed malicious sites, quietly eavesdrop on private communications, or even launch massive denial of service operations. And the scariest part? You would never even know your data took a detour. This leads us to a pretty profound realization for the whole cybersecurity world. As you can see, taking down the internet or quietly compromising it doesn't always require some crazy complex malware or fancy zero-day exploits. Sometimes, literally one wrong, highly specific routing announcement is all it takes to completely shift the tectonic plates of our digital world. I really want to leave you with this incredible insight from network engineers. The absolute biggest risk to the internet isn't necessarily a massive equipment failure, or a severed underwater cable, or a broken server farm. No, the real fragility lies in wrong routing information. It's those invisible, highly trusting directions that are holding this entire massive global infrastructure together. So the next time you sit back and watch a video flawlessly load on your screen, just take a brief moment to remember the massive, invisible map of hundreds of thousands of routers frantically guiding those packets across the globe. It really takes a village to route a packet. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this explainer and this deep dive into internet history. Join us for our next explainer, where we're going to take this exact concept even further and ask a truly terrifying question. Could this exact same BGP flaw be actively used by hackers today to quietly steal your private bank data through man-in-the-middle attacks? Seriously, you won't want to miss it. See you then.